So we can also just check in and see if there's anything that's trying to pull us away from this moment. Maybe it's something that we feel like we've left undone of the day, something that we're looking forward to tomorrow, or worrying about tomorrow. Maybe some sense of anxiety. You can just notice that it's the body and this mind's, desire for wellness, desire for safety, and we can give it that. We can allow it to feel that way, and just take note of it. That's how the body's feeling in this moment. It's not right or wrong. It's okay, but we can notice that tendency. We can notice whether it's tied to some particular event or particular anxiety about a particular thing that might or might not happen, or whether it's just less defined than that, just sort of a general sense of maybe unease. I don't want to put words in anyone's head, but just explore what any movement that is pulling us away from just a simple sense of presence. The body is here. We know we're here. We know we're sitting. And if we find that we're being pulled away in a way that actually draws our attention into its sphere, we can just come back to the breath. Breath is just something that is inherent within us, present all the time. And, unless we make up a story about it, is actually completely non-conceptual. I mean, we can think about it, but we don't have to. We can just notice it, be present with it. Feel how it feels in the body. So if we find ourselves being pulled away, we can just use the breath. Oh, okay, I'm still breathing. I'll come back to that for a few moments, and then relax a bit. We can also use that sense of gratitude that we mentioned at the outset to come back to, oh, okay, yeah, this moment is good. It's good. So there can be a sense of gratitude, a sense of just the physical sense, the sense of presence in the body, in the room. We can also notice any tendency of the mind to define anything as me and other than me. In other words, any attempt of our mind to say, well, my body is here and the room is out there. To notice any tendency to slice and dice. Again, it's not wrong, it's just what the mind does, but we can notice that tendency. Oh, there's the mind distinguishing again between this and that. Distinguishing between what I like, what I don't care for so much. You can watch it do that as well. And in the meantime, we can come back to the breath. Still happening. Come back to the simple sense of gratitude to be here. We can notice when we're not trying to define ourselves and separate things into likes and dislikes, that there's the sense of openness, availability, welcoming. You can feel it just even in the room, just even in an empty room, a sense of receptivity. And we're still breathing. So this is just a touchstone, you could say, that we come back to. We'll have the opportunity to come back to many, many times during the day. It doesn't take long just to come back to this sense of being present, being here, being open, being available. Not in a rush to get to the next more exciting thing. Just to notice that I'm here, I'm alive, life is happening. I'm breathing. Just that, coming back to that during the day, whenever it occurs to us. Again, it doesn't take long. We don't have to be sitting in a quiet room. We could be, I don't know, walking down the street, from the parking lot to the store. We could be pumping gas. It doesn't actually require a particular setting. At first, sure, it's conducive, but after a while, we catch on to this sense of presence is never absent. It's actually very, very helpful to see that over and over again. Oh, it's still here. I'm still here. Life is still happening. Regardless of what's going on, whatever turmoil might be happening, we can always come back to this touchstone. Yes, and we're not denying the turmoil, but we're just saying yes, and I'm here. I can still be appreciative of this life. I can still be grateful for being here. I can still breathe. Okay, good. So in these last weeks, I think we've been doing this maybe 8 weeks or so now, since late March. And each week I've tried to talk about a way of approaching what we truly are, and ways that we can use that both as a practice and as a point of recognition of what's already present. So we've introduced or talked about or explored different ways of doing that. one week we talked about just the, remaining with that sense of the present moment, just, seeing ways that we can cast off the past and the future and see the reality of the present moment as a way to bring us just to the simple state of simplicity, that direct experience. Or we could come at it from the inquiry into I am. What is I am? What does that actually mean? What does that actually feel like when I explore that? What does I mean? What is beingness? What is that? So it's another way to come to it. But what I wanted to talk about tonight is earnestness, the importance of being earnest, right? Nisargadatta, who I'm guessing most of you know, but he's was a 20th century Indian sage who is had some of the most brilliant dialogues that I've ever encountered, and the simplicity and the directness of it are quite profound. And one of the things that he mentions often, when people ask him what is the most important quality, if I'm on the trail, if I'm on the path to, and my desire is to awaken, what is the most important quality? And he said often that the most important quality is earnestness. It wasn't a particular practice. It wasn't a particular ideology. It wasn't, your lifestyle, whether you were married or not, or had a business or not, or any of that. He said the most important thing was earnestness. So what's meant by earnestness? Sort of an inner quality that we bring. It's almost not something that we can fabricate. Maybe it grows within us when we dedicate ourselves to it. Sometimes just taking action, just movement in a direction, builds conviction, builds a sense of earnestness, the desire to go further. But I would say that this sense of earnestness, there's something innate about it, something that is, it's a question of self-honesty, right? The willingness to tell ourselves the truth. Sometimes we hear things that we know are true, but we just don't want to hear it, whether it's said in our own head or someone else says it. We know it's true, but we just don't want to go there. So this sense of earnestness is the willingness to follow that thread with integrity and be willing to follow it wherever it leads. And in this journey, it will lead through places that aren't necessarily comfortable, right? In this journey to awaken, you could say that that spirit or that light will seek out any shadowy areas, maybe before enlightenment, maybe after, but ultimately any areas that we have been reluctant to look at, that we feel are sort of lurking there below the surface, we don't want to disturb them, we don't want to deal with them, we try to keep them at bay. Those will need to be willing to look at some point. So that there's a sense of willingness, right? Willingness to go where I need to go to see what I need to see, wherever that is. And that doesn't diminish, in a sense, that willingness, that openness, that receptivity to see whatever needs to be seen. There's in the Quran, Muhammad at one point, this is before his awakening, prays, God, show me things as they are. Yeah. So that's different than, please, wake me up so I don't have to deal with all of this, or, just show me, all the fun, exciting, blissful, esoteric things. It was actually a much bolder prayer, right? Show me things as they are. I mean, that opens the door, doesn't it? There's also a Christian theologian back, I think it was like 1300, give or take a century or two, German bishop in the Catholic Church, well-known, well-respected, Meister Eckhart. And I mean, his prayer was, God, please free me of any ideas that I have about you. That's another bold prayer, huh? I mean, these are people that are accomplished. Ordinarily you would expect someone who's a, bishop and giving services and writing treatises and, being part of the Catholic Church and would sort of rest on their laurels at some point. So this is someone, even with that degree of sort of seniority, still willing to explore beyond whatever limitations he suspects in whatever direction, without any conditions about where that search may lead. And it eventually got the attention of the Catholic Church, and he had the good sense to die before he was killed, but it was still a bold prayer. So the sense of earnestness is the willingness to tell ourselves the truth. This has to do with being truthful with ourselves about what we know, right? Not to diminish it or downplay it or pretend we don't really know, so we'll just go on doing what we've always done. It's important to act in accordance, in alignment with what we know at that particular time. Maybe later we'll know something at a deeper level, and we'll be able to act in a different way, express that in a different way. Beautiful, that's how things are. But it's also equally true, not to act in a way that is based on something that we don't actually know. It's just based on belief. So if we hear a teaching, there's probably a couple different ways to respond to that. One would be to respond to it on a completely mental level. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, I don't agree with that. I have this opinion or read this book, or so that's a mental response to something that's put out. Another way to respond to that is, oh, that sounds good. I think I'll go with that. I don't want to really, spend a lot of time thinking about it or exploring it, but it sounds good, and so I'll just take that on and try to incorporate it into my other beliefs that I've already carrying around, and it'll add to that, fill that out a little bit more. So the third way of listening to any teaching is, it can either be, oh, okay, I've experienced that, great. apparently someone else has too, but I knew it for myself that that was true. It's nice to hear it from somebody else, but not essential. That same person can, in the same manner, hear teaching and say, well, actually, I'm willing to admit to myself that I haven't experienced that yet. So I don't actually know whether that's true or not true. So I'll just sort of put it on the back burner, leave it there. And, maybe one day I will have that experience and think, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about. So this is honesty. So it's not using a teaching to inflate our belief system. It's not using the teaching to create a mental fodder for agreeing and disagreeing, and which doesn't actually have much power or much value at all. It's just being willing to hear something and recognize whether we know that to be true or we haven't yet experienced that. Okay, so we're not, we don't have to accept it or deny it. If we don't know, we can just say, okay, we don't know. Maybe it sounds reasonable, but just leave that as a possibility rather than adopt it as a belief. So it's important in terms of, being honest with ourselves, what we know and what we don't know, what we've experienced for ourselves and what we haven't. It would be nice, and it's often presented as a possibility that, with the right guru, the powerful guru, that you can just be there and they'll do the work for you. They'll do the heavy lifting, and all you need to do is surrender to that guru, and the guru will sprinkle their magic dust on you, and you will wake up. The tricky part is sometimes as things get closer to the truth, they also get more dangerous. So this is an area where that's the case, right? So it is true that being with in the vicinity or listening to somebody that has had that sees things from a deeper perspective can have value. The value is really the suggestion to look in a certain direction. Of course, you're welcome to look in any direction you'd like, but the suggestion is look in this direction, and it will save you time, right? You still have to do the work yourself. You still have to walk through that door. Nobody else can do that for you, but at least by walking in a direction that's fruitful, it may save a lot of time. It may save decades. Who knows? Maybe lifetimes. But the danger part is the belief that somehow the guru can do it for you. The guru, can have energetic powers, can make you feel blissful, can, even, cause an insight or bliss or joy or ecstasy. Yeah, all that's true. But that's not really what we're talking about here. It's all of those bliss, mind-blowing experiences, revelations, all of that are experiences. All experiences are impermanent. All experiences come and go. Even the experience of enlightenment, if we take it to be the content of the experience, expanding to cosmic proportions, mind-blowing ecstasy, all of that. If we take it for that and miss the underlying, very quiet awareness within which all of that happens, we end up keeping the bathwater and throwing out the baby. You know, we get attached to the fireworks and miss what is the real important thing, which is all of that is happening within what I essentially am, which is this openness, this awareness, this that which enlivens us, that peace beyond all understanding, you know, that very quiet, immovable space. So it's important to realize that the experience that comes with that realization of what we essentially are can be really varied. I mean, it can be mind-blowing ecstasy. It can also be really quiet, like, wow, I never would have guessed that's how this journey would have turned out, that I would just recognize that what I was always looking for was always present. And there's a recognition. Wow, how could I have missed it all these years? I mean, it can be literally that down to earth. One's actually not any more significant than the other. The important part is seeing that what we are remains, even when the mind-blowing bliss subsides, still what we are. Okay, so part of this earnestness is to really check in with ourselves to see what we really want. You know, if what we want is, you know, wild spiritual experiences, otherworldly things, powers, cities, right? If that's what we want, that's possible. It's not what we're talking about here, and it's actually a diversion from what we're talking about here. If that's the intent is, oh, that will feel good, right? It'll make me feel accomplished and make, you know, perhaps other people would respect me more if I, you know, develop these spiritual powers, or could talk about all these otherworldly spiritual experiences that I was having. You know, that it may happen, but that if that's our intent, then that has, we have to really look at the source of that intent. Who is that intent serving? You know, it's tricky ground, because those kinds of let's say powers or experiences can be very addictive. And there's a lot of support in the spiritual community for those being evidence of spiritual advancement. So there's this, you know, certain respect goes along with that. But we're still dealing with phenomena. We're still dealing with egoic desires to attain something that enhances this body-mind. It may be that those abilities, some people are more inclined that way than others, maybe that those abilities just naturally arise without the desire to use them, or you know, they're not of any particular importance. That the important part is the recognition of what we fundamentally are, regardless of the current content of that awareness. So again, it comes back to what do we really want? How earnest are we about that? Are we easily pulled away from that path to something that appears more fascinating? Right? You know, it doesn't even have to be the attainment of powers. It can just be the development of a spiritual identity. You know, talking the talk, you know, wearing the clothes, eating the right foods, you know, can all have that appearance of a spiritual person. and it's easy to get identified with that. So is that our intent? Is that is that as far as we want to take this? Just to come up with another identity that, feels a little more in alignment to who we think we are. Is that it? Is that enough? It's up to you. I mean, you can say, yeah, that's what I want. I'd say, great, no problem. Okay. But if we are being, can you hear the birds outside? If we're being really dedicated to finding out what's really happening here, what this life is really about, this earnestness is what keeps us on that path. It's like, yeah, that's interesting. That's good information. Love that experience, and I still want to go deeper. So in some sense, every step further is a relinquishment of what went before. It's not that what went before is wrong or inadequate or anything. It was a necessary step on the journey. It's sort of like, if you were staying here at the retreat center and you were walking up the hill to go to your cabin, and it's a pretty good hike up the hill there, and it's only the last step into the cabin that actually brings you into the cabin. So you could say, well, what was the point of all those other steps? It's just this last step that actually brought me into the cabin. But it's not like everything that brought us there was unnecessary in any way. I mean, it's one of the things that we can sense into, in ordinary life, as well as in this spiritual path that we're talking about, is looking back and seeing that things that may have appeared unnecessary at times may have appeared as a detour or dead end at times. When we look back and we say, no, I needed to see that. It may have taken me a while to see it. Okay. It takes however long it takes.